Welcome. All right, so in this case, ladies and gentlemen, what I want to do is show you how to simplify this expression. And when I'm looking at sines, squareds, and cosines, I automatically look at my Pythagorean identities. And one thing that kind of intrigues me about this problem here is I see I have cosine times a sine, sine squared. And I automatically know that once I see something like that, I want to be able to look into seeing if it's possible if I can simplify it by using my Pythagorean identity for sine and cosine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace sine squared with cosine squared. But you just can't replace them because the relationship is sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x equals 1. So I'm going to subtract the sine squared of x. So I have cosine squared of x equals 1 minus the sine squared of x. So now I go ahead and replace that in there. So I have cosine of w times, now it's going to be, what am I doing? I got to solve for cosine, not sine. No, I was right. Solve for sine. Solve for sine, got to subtract the cosine squared of x. So therefore, I have sine squared of x is equal to 1 minus cosine squared of x. Right. So it's going to be 1 minus cosine. But we're not using x's, we're using w's. But that's OK. I always like to write my identities as x's just because I'm so used to it. But make sure when you're simplifying that you transfer over to the variable that you're using, which in this case is going to be w, plus cosine cubed of w. And that's all divided by secant of w. Well, what's nice about here is now I can apply my distributive property. So now I have a numerator that's all in terms of cosine. So when I multiply that through, I have cosine of w minus cosine cubed of w plus cosine cubed of w all over the secant of w. Well, positive cosine cubed of w minus cosine cubed of w, those are just going to add to 0. So I'm left with the final of cosine of w divided by secant of w. Now remember, ladies and gentlemen, secant, we can rewrite that in terms of cosine by rewriting that as 1 over cosine of w. Multiply by now the reciprocal on the top and bottom. And therefore, that multiplies to 1. And I'm left with the cosine squared of w. And that's going to be my final simplified version. Thanks.